First of all, hi everybody. It's good to be here. And Janet, that was fantastic. I heard a lot of it and want to now read all the books. We're in particular danger if we flatter ourselves into believing that we are cool with everything, because nobody can be. And people believing that they are is what causes the explosion in this book. And so keeping that in mind, the book is set in New York City today. It is about a teenage boy whose name is Wesley, who's 15 years old. He lives with his mom, who is a book editor, and his stepfather, who is a great guy, uptown. And he says to his mom, I want to live with my dad for a while so I can get to know him. Because his dad, among other things, has not been very involved in his life. And his dad is one of the most admirable New Yorkers in history. I mean, like since Peter Stuyvesant, I mean, going back that far. His dad is gay. The dad came out after the marriage ended to the mom. And he has been living with his partner of 10 years, who is a former actor, singer, dancer, who's basically a chorus boy, and has been, runs a restaurant in the theater district of New York. The dad is a American Civil Liberties Union lawyer who was in charge of it's a lot of things, the ACLU LGBT arm, and he is at the height, at the pinnacle of influence. You know, he is the one who wrote all the legislation for gay marriage in New York. He is a very presentable person. He is potentially a mayoral candidate, and he's a very distant guy. And the kid, who admires him tremendously, only wants to get to know him better. So they engineer a situation where the kid can live with his dad and with his dad's boyfriend, who he barely knows, for a semester of school, the first semester of 10th grade. Now, when the kid, see, it's so great to be able to tell the whole thing here, because, you know, when you're trying to tease people into reading it, you know, you do different things. I'm going to give you the whole story here, because this will help you, I hope, in some ways. He moves in with the dad, and the dad proves to be as cool and absent as he always was. However, his partner turns out to be an almost ideal parent, effortlessly. He and the kid just connect. He and the kid understand each other. He and the kid are like long-lost friends, even though there's a 30-year age difference between them. And everybody pretends to be very, very relaxed about this, because these are people who are, you know, who flatter themselves, as we all do, into believing that they have no real prejudices. And there is an incident which you're going to hear about. The kid's best friend, I'll give you some sort of sense at the same time where this came from. The boy himself, whose name is Wesley, came from a kid who came in to read for a part on My So-Called Life a long time ago, who was 15 years old. He had gangly, and his voice was breaking, and pimples, and, you know, it was this awkward boy. And he came in and he read, and he was okay. He wasn't great, but he asked us if he could stay for a second afterward, and they never do that. So we just said, sure, whatever. And he said, can I tell you guys something? And we all said yes. And he said, guess what happened to me? We had no idea what that would be. And he said, 2 weeks ago, my dad told my sisters and me and my mom that he was gay and he was moving out of the house so he could live with his boyfriend. Now, people didn't say this then. And we were kind of astonished. And we said, wow, that must be intense for you. And he was had a lot of bravado, and he said, oh, I don't care, you know, I mean, big deal, you know, I mean, as long as my dad's happy, that's all I care about. And I went home that night, and I wrote a 3-page monologue for this boy, or for the character that this boy inspired, that became the essence of this book. There was something in this kid that got to me, and I put it in a drawer for 15 years. It's almost hard to believe that it's that long, but, you know, people now think Claire Danes is an insane CIA agent, and she was once a 14-year-old girl. And that went into a drawer. Shortly after that, I will drop a name here because it's easy for me to drop because I never knew her. But somebody told me that Nora Ephron's son, someone who knew her, had come out in an assembly, the way kids are doing now, but this was 15 years ago also, at his school in New York, and he just announced in front of the whole school that he was gay, and that had never been done anywhere ever, and that stuck with me. And so, in the weird way that books get written and the books happen, those two elements sort of floated around in my mind. The third element was I was at a dinner party, shortly after that, where I sat next to a woman who was from New York, who was very accomplished. She was, the head of the committee to save Grand Central Station. I mean, she was, the head of Amnesty International in New York City. And, everything about her was perfect. And she was so perfect, she was a little bit unreal. And I said to her, afterwards, I said, you're incredible. I said, you seem to be like the perfect human. And she said, I'm far from perfect. And I said, well, give me one example of your imperfection. And she said, okay. She said, I have a 15-year-old son. And I have a number of gay friends. And I would not feel completely comfortable about his being alone with any of them. I said, wow. I said, why did you tell me that? And she said, because I have a feeling that it's safe. I've never said it to anybody, and I hope I never see you again. And I haven't seen her again, but those elements cook in your mind, and it really wasn't until, many years later that I sat down, found the monologue, some of which you're going to hear, in a second, and this became a book day by day by day, until about 6 months into it, I realized I am writing a book. And I always wanted to write a book, and somehow I was writing a book, and these were the germs of this, which I think would be a very interesting thing to say to kids in school, is this is where books come from. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't, file it away, and see what happens. I mean, that's how writers make use of their lives.